on that wall so that it'll fall completely off. And we will also do the sides. Now you have a completed wall. Now that the wall is complete, I would like to show you how to clean it. But as you can see, if you did the wall like this, you wouldn't have to clean it. To clean this wall, we're going to use our Sure Clean 600, which is this material that we showed you in our product line earlier. And what I've already done is I've mixed it in that pail at a rate of 6:1. Now I told you we waited anywhere from 24 to 72 hours so that the mortar is cured enough that we won't be harming it. It's something that is very important that you must do prior to that before you put the cleaner on. And if you're on the exterior of your house, it's no problem. I just take the garden hose and I completely wet the wall down and soak it. I really want to get all the water soaked into these mortar joints because the Sure Clean 600, what it does is it cleans mortar off the brick. I don't want to do any damage to my vertical or horizontal joints. But when I'm on the interior, I don't have that luxury. So what I usually do is I take a very spray like this and I try to soak all these mortar joints, get them full of water so that I don't have to worry about any of the Sure Clean getting into those areas. Once we completely have soaked all the joints and we've watered the bricks down, we're then ready to apply the cleaner. To apply the cleaner, I use a regular Mason's brush. I use the long handle type because it gets me back further away from the acid mix. Now, what I usually do is, what you basically want to do is you want to apply the acid in a horizontal direction like this. You do small areas at one time. And I let this stay on for a few minutes and watch to see what's happening. If I happen to have an area that had an excessive amount of brick, here's where my little trowel comes into play. I could just scratch that off and take that right down to the brick very easily. You do not want to use a wire brush because a wire brush will scratch the brick and it will only damage it. After we allow the acid and the mixture to stay on the wall, we re-wash it again in a horizontal direction, and then that's where we're taking off any excess material that might be on there. Oh, look how that cleans everything up really nice. The next step, if you're on the outside, naturally you would take a garden hose and wash this completely down to make sure that you have everything off it. On the interior, you should put a piece of toweling or newspaper on the floor and do it the same way I wet the brick. I would now spray this on like this and just let everything run off and just wash it right off. You see everything coming off? That would be on there and that would finish right down to the bottom. And you have a completed clean brick wall. I'd like to talk a little bit about sealing this brick. On the exterior, you would want to get a sealer that will be permeable, air permeable. What that means is that it seals water from penetrating the surface, but allows any vapors to breathe through the brick and the mortar joint. That will keep the water off the brick, out of the brick and out of the mortar, and will let it shed right off. But what about the interior? Well, the interior, the water sealer is not that important. What's important is if you're going to get into areas, say in the kitchen, behind your stove, or behind your sink, or between your cabinets. There you get a different kind of stain. Now, that area needs a sealer that will prevent anything that will stain the brick or the mortar. And that sealer is usually a glazy type of sealer. The clear sealer for the water penetration shouldn't show any change of the brick or the mortar joint at all. But the glazing sealer for stains will show a difference. Now I'd like to go back to an earlier part in the show when we took some close-ups of these photos. I want to show you how we did the detailing on the chimneys, how we did the detailing around fireplaces, how we cut some of this material and build everything out so that you can do what actually is in those pictures very easily. This is a cutaway of a chimney. As you can see, I have the metal grid, and I have this build-out that you saw at the top of the chimney in our picture. I want to show you how we did that. Now, to get this cutaway here to extend this brick, you can do it even more extensively. But I recommend that we do it a certain way, because once we put this paper on and protect all that wood, I don't want to put anything there in front of that that will have to be protected again and will have to be waterproofed again. So what I usually do is I take a piece of rigid foam, and this is an extruded polystyrene foam. And as you can see here, I've actually put a piece in here. So what I have done is that I've gotten to the last course of my chimney, and I have taken this material here and I put it against the wood and nailed that in place. How did I get that size? Well, it was fairly easy. I actually took this grid, and here we're getting back to a point where we were before on how to cut it. Not only I showed you how to cut it vertically, I'm going to show you how I cut it horizontally. I usually take my utility knife, make sure your blade is fairly sharp. I give it one little score in here just to get the score line that I want. Then I usually take it a little bit deeper. If you don't have enough strength and it doesn't break, you may have to do it 2 or 3 times. I want to fold that area, not where the holes are, but at the joint, so I could just check it. And there I go, I have it cut. Now that made it very easy to cut. I pre-cut this piece, but as you can see, that piece is the same size as this piece of grid. And we wanted to build out that 1/2 inch. So what I did, as you can see here, I took that and rested it on that last grid, and I nailed this and put that on in place. Now I take this top piece. This top piece I take, that is the piece that I put up here. And that's how I did my build out. It made it very simple. Plus this board is waterproof. I don't have to worry about it. Now, another thing when you're doing chimney chases, to make it a job very easy for you, I always tell people before you build it, the best thing to do is figure out the size you have to make it. You can't remember the numbers, the magic numbers, but I'll tell you the easiest way to do it. If you take 2 corner bricks and spread them apart with approximately a 1/2 inch joint, and you measure in between here, you'll come out with approximately 14.5 to 14 5/8. That's your basic size of your 2 corners. What you want to do then, if you want to enlarge that, you know that a brick that's going in there is 7.5 inches wide, plus the joint makes it 8 inches. You would then add 8 inches to that opening. And then you would measure. So if I had 14.5, I would add 8 inches to that. I am now at 22.5. And you would just go successively larger by 8-inch increments, and then that will tell you what size to frame with the finished sheathing that you should have. That would be from the interior. So all the bricks will then fit without a lot of cutting. You can also, if you had your chimney done, you can also take these corners and turn it so it's like this, so that you don't have the 2 legs in one direction. That'll give you a very different dimension. We only do that when the chimney is already built and the sizes are not what we really want. We don't want to end up with a lot of small pieces. This is not the way we usually do it, but it is acceptable. I'd like to talk a little bit about these fireplaces and how we did these. They may look alike, but they're both actually a little bit different in the installation. They're both 0 clearance fireplaces. What that means is that they were able to be put into the wall with a 0 clearance, so you don't have to worry about the heat penetrating too much. But if you look at both of them, you see there is a difference. One has an enlarged hearth. It doesn't have a mantel around it yet. One has a hearth that is enlarged even more and has a mantel put around it. Where we started both of these jobs was right at this line here. And we started this line here and we worked down to the raised hearth. But if you also notice, this area, as all 0 clearance fireplaces, has a black frame around it. Now, you have to make a decision whether you want to see that black frame or not. Here, the people did not want to see that black frame, so we had to do a little different installation, and those are the points that I want to go over with you now. When you're installing the one and you would like to see the black frame, well, when you push that into place, you would leave that just flush outside or flush with the sheetrock. Even if you left it out 1/8 of an inch, it wouldn't hurt. And what you do is you cut the metal grid, and you cut the metal grid pieces to fit in here. And as I said, we put the first one at the top and work our way down. When I cut those metal grids, I always cut them a 1/2 inch in from each edge, and I spoke to you earlier about that. The reason for that is we don't want to look into the side and see the metal edges when it's completed. Some people might not put anything around the side, just put a mantle on the top. If you're going to do this material here, you want to jump that metal edge. Now when we jump that metal edge, what we do is we actually take the grid and run it right over the edge, and we take a pop rivet and we pop rivet the metal right to the black metal. Now that works very well, and sometimes I put a little adhesive on the back of the metal grid, and that even works well, but you should pop rivet it. Now what happens is when you do that, you're going to see an edge in here. So before we put the grid on, we usually take a piece of black aluminum about this size, which is only about 1.5 inches by 1/4 inch. We bend that little lip on there. And we take that and we usually mount that right along the edge. And what that does is that allows us to then put the brick like that and not look into the side, so that we have a finished edge and it looks like it's fitted right into the fireplace. When you're doing your raised hearth, these are where the corner bricks will give you this look. That gives you the bricking so that you have a rolled lock edge, and that gives it its authentic look. Once this is completed, then you install your mantle. It's always best to get your mantle size first so that you know where you want to put the brick and how large you want to make your fireplace opening and how large you want your area on the wall to be covered. Okay, we've talked earlier about how we were going to use the corners as a window sill and how we were going to have to do other sills in case the windows were not extended into the building. If your windows are set back into the wall, well, you would use a sill like this and put it on a slight angle. If today on a lot of homes, most of the windows have a very small flange. You take all the Anderson windows, they only protrude about 1 inch past that. What we have here is a molded brick sill, which interlocks into our panel system so that you do get a nice attractive sill, as you can see right here. Also, I would like to show you at this time, we've talked about soldier coursings and standing the bricks on edge. Well, here is one of the cases in which we've done this. We've eyebrowed this window. As you see, we cut these into a soldier course and we've eyebrowed the window. You're only limited to your imagination of what you can do. Remember, when you see the sign, "Brick It," the real brick siding, you can always brick it yourself.